Here's what we know. Sometime on Friday, a brick was thrown through a window at Democratic Congresswoman Louise Slaughter's district office in Niagara Falls, New York. Also, late on Friday, or possibly early on Saturday, another brick was thrown through a window at the Sedgwick County Democratic Party office in Wichita, Kansas. That brick was reported to have anti-Obama and anti-health reform messages on it. A day later, on Saturday, or early Sunday, another brick shattered glass doors at the Democratic Party headquarters in Rochester, New York. Shortly after the health reform vote on Sunday, a fist-sized rock was reportedly thrown through the front window of the Hamilton County Democratic Party in Pleasant Ridge, Ohio. And at 2:40 a.m. on Monday morning, a few hours after the health care vote, the front door and glass panel were smashed out at Democratic Congresswoman Gabrielle Gifford's office in Tucson, Arizona. So compiling all those, it's Niagara Falls, New York, Rochester, New York, Pleasant Ridge, Ohio, Wichita, Kansas, and Tucson, Arizona. 5 separate attacks on Democratic Party offices in the span of 4 days. Since the initial reports, we have also learned that the FBI is now investigating threats reportedly left at Congresswoman Louise Slaughter's campaign office. A recorded message reportedly threatening to assassinate the children of lawmakers who voted yes on health reform. Again, the FBI now reportedly investigating that reported death threat against Louise Slaughter's children. We can also now show you what was used to smash out the glass door at that Democratic Party headquarters in Rochester, New York. That brick had a note wrapped around it which reads, quote, "Extremism in defense of liberty is no vice." Presuming they meant extremism and not extremism, which is what they wrote, the brick wielder appears to have been quoting conservative U.S. Senator Barry Goldwater when he accepted the Republican Party's nomination for president in 1964. In last night's report on this show on some of those incidents, we said that nobody yet had taken responsibility for any of those incidents. That's the one thing that I said in reporting on this last night that I would have most guessed wouldn't change over 24 hours. Well, that's changed. The Rochester Democrat and Chronicle newspaper reporting that after their initial story on the attack on the Monroe County Democratic office, somebody did contact the newspaper to happily claim credit for that incident. His name is Mike Vanderboe. He's the former leader of a group called the Alabama Constitutional Militia. Mr. Vanderboe has been advocating specifically that people throw bricks through the windows of Democratic Party headquarters all around the country. And he wants credit, apparently, whenever anyone follows his advice. On his blog last week, Mr. Vanderboe wrote an anti-Democrat manifesto that included this call to action. We can break their windows before we have to resort to rifles to resist their well-intentioned tyranny. These windows are not far away from where you are reading this right now. In virtually every city and county in this land, there's a local headquarters of Pelosi's party, the Democrat Party. These headquarters invariably have windows, so if you wish to send a message that Pelosi and her party cannot fail to hear, break their windows, break them now, break them and run to break again, break them under cover of night, break them in broad daylight, break them and await arrest in willful, principled civil disobedience, break them with rocks, break them with slingshots, break them with baseball bats, but break them. The time has come to take your life, your liberty, and that of your children and grandchildren into your own 2 hands and act. It is, after all, more humane than shooting them in self-defense. And if we do a proper job, if we break the windows of hundreds, thousands of Democrat Party headquarters across this country, we might just wake up enough of them to make defending ourselves at the muzzle of a rifle unnecessary. Break their windows, break them now. Mr. Vanderboe made this solicitation from Pinson, Alabama. It's a suburb of Birmingham, Alabama, where he resides and from where he expounds in great detail online all about the federal government's secret plots to assert control over your life and then kill you. It's worth noting that Mr. Vanderboe is an ex-militia guy who is anti-government enough to call for this type of crime and physical intimidation targeting politicians. He's anti-government enough to promote this sort of thing and claim credit for it. He's not so anti-government, however, that he is turning down the Social Security disability insurance checks that the Montgomery Advertiser reports that he lives on. Maybe he could throw a rock through his government check. See how that goes over at the bank. Mr. Vanderboe's efforts to inspire violent action around the country apparently derive from his belief that he leads millions of people who think the same things that he does.
We are 3% of American gun owners. That's the muzzles of 3 million rifles who can be, if required, pointed directly at the hearts of anyone who wants to be a tyrant in this country.
Define tyrant, mister. Mr. Vanderboe, from his vantage point in Pinson, Alabama, is also calling on like-minded anti-government people to prepare themselves for a new civil war.
Folks, you need to be getting ready. You need to be forming neighborhood defense organizations. You need to be looking to your larders. You need to be looking to your arsenals. You need to be looking to your physical fitness. You need to be looking toward your neighbors and who can you count on, and how do you build small fire teams and things like that. These are the things that you must be doing now, because events will overtake you if you do not.
While claiming credit for the recent attacks on Democratic offices around the country, Mr. Vanderboe offered this not very veiled threat today during a radio interview.
There are rifles being cleaned right now. Do you folks understand?
Being what? Claimed from where?
There are rifles being taken out of the closet and cleaned.
Organized attacks on Democratic Party offices across the country are crimes that are designed to intimidate political actors into changing their policies. And that is pretty close to the legal definition of domestic terrorism in this country. Mr. Vanderboe, however, is comfortable with that. He wants this attention quite desperately. He obviously can't claim credit for bricks that flew or threats made before he made his blog post. And who knows if he's just tooting his horn here to try to get famous. But it should be noted that he is tied into a somewhat organized movement. He is a featured speaker at a forthcoming event, the Restore the Constitution Open Carry Rally. This is a gun rights rally scheduled for April 19th at Fort Hunter National Park in Virginia. Why Fort Hunter National Park? Well, according to the rally's organizers, they believe that is the closest location to Washington, D.C. in which they can legally, openly carry their firearms. Again, what these people are doing is very explicit. They're trying to get publicity. They admit that they're just trying to get media attention. But their other goal is to try to intimidate the political process in this country, because they can't get people to do what they want through the voting process. They are instead using guns as a means of intimidating our national politics and their fellow citizens along the way. This gun theme has been a very consistent thread over the past year. You might remember this Tea Party protest sign that we kept seeing lots of different events over the past year. We came unarmed this time. Remember all the people showing up at politics events last summer with guns strapped to their side? You might remember the guy in New Hampshire who showed up at one of President Obama's town hall events brandishing a 9mm pistol, and he had the T-shirt on with the quote, the sign with the quote on it about replenishing the tree of liberty with blood. This gun fervor that we've seen, this effort to intimidate through the show of force, it carried on this past weekend in the lead up to the big health reform vote. This sign appeared right outside the Capitol dome warning, if Brown, as in Senator Scott Brown, can't stop it, a Browning can. And the armed and dangerous theme isn't just in the streets and at the protests. It's now the vernacular by which supposedly mainstream conservative politicians address their followers now. Sarah Palin tweeted to her followers today, quote, "Common sense conservatives and lovers of America don't retreat, instead reload. Please see my Facebook page." What she was directing people to on her Facebook page was this message from her political action committee. 20 Democratic congressional districts that she says she's targeting with rifle scope images over each of them. There's one other thing to note here about what's going on at the edge of politics and why this is a big deal. The big Show Your Guns rally that's going to happen on April 19th, where the throw the bricks through the windows of Democratic Party headquarters guy is going to be speaking. It's a listed speaker at that event. That event is symbolic also in its timing. April 19th isn't just some convenient date for these folks to get together. It's not just a random Monday in April. We mentioned before that Mike Vanderboe is a former militia member, former leader of the Alabama Constitutional Militia back in the 90s, which was sort of the heyday for the patriot movement, the militia movement, the gun rights movement in this country. Well, April 19th is like Christmas Day for the militia movement. overshadowing the fact that it was the first day of the American Revolution, the Battle of Lexington and Concord. For them, it's also the anniversary of the Branch Davidian siege in Waco, Texas in 1993, which these groups see as a great call to arms against the American government. It is not a coincidence that April 19th is also the day that Timothy McVeigh deliberately chose for his bombing of the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. April 19th. That's when the guest speaker is the throw bricks through political office windows guy at the Bring Your Guns to Washington rally.